tips and best practices from people who actually use to build OpenStack, whether for themselves or whether for their customers, and kind of share their experience in that regard. So that you could walk out of this conference with also the tool set of the ideas and what you could do next with it. And that's kind of, let's say, the main theme for that. So feel free to ask questions. I'll kind of spin the discussion myself, but I really want you to ask those questions because you need to get out of here with the lessons. So I'll start with I think the first question is, what should I expect when I start an OpenStack project, or when I want to deploy an OpenStack project? I start with you, Alex, and maybe you can answer that.
What can you expect when you start a project? So I think there are two basic customer types that we've seen who are looking to install OpenStack. And, the first kind are the ones that kind of started this whole movement. They're people who are early adopters. They're very, very technical. They really understand what OpenStack is. There's a lot of architects and technology people there. And the main challenge there is not getting OpenStack to stand up. I mean, it's difficult, but the main challenge that you have to deal with that is that all of them have legacy environments and network requirements and security requirements and all that. And getting OpenStack to work with that environment is actually the main challenge. And then the same thing is on the tooling side. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to measure expectations that it's not going to be easy, not because OpenStack isn't ready, because for them actually it is, but their environment will be, a huge problem. It will take time to procure hardware and this and that, and networks, and that will be the main gating factor. The second type is actually the opposite side of the spectrum, because a lot of people now starting to hear that OpenStack is cool. And they just say, great, let's try OpenStack. And they have usually VMware running there already, so they can expect to press a button and it kind of starts working. And then they get to know that OpenStack is actually an immature technology compared to, So the challenge there is to make sure that their expectations are well taken care of, and you don't run ahead of themselves. So you manage expectations there very, very well.
So basically what you're saying is that people come to OpenStack with a VMware background are more likely to get disappointed at the beginning, unless they understand that they're getting, and that's where they're managing expectations.
A lot of handholding is required in the second line.
Okay. Cool.
I think I would add to this is, I think those are two types of people that you may find in maybe smaller companies. If you go to a big enterprise with larger IT shop, you may find some people who will be very initiative and bring this ideas of OpenStack, but then it requires a major cultural shift within the bigger IT department in how to adopt those new things and expect that things can be implemented in production from the open source environment, and all the new concepts of DevOps, NoOps type of things, making sure that you bring new things, and you may not be able to get the support from a big vendor behind it. You have to develop your own expertise in something. So this is another challenge that requires some work.
So could you summarize it again?
Right, so if you want to introduce things like the OpenStack in the big enterprise, it requires also a major cultural shift and major training investment to shift the IT in the department to support this environment.
Got it. So it's also a cultural change, not just
exactly.
technical
It's not only
change.
technology, it's also a
right, which is even related to things that are not related to OpenStack, but in private cloud in general, which is DevOps culture and things like that. Monty, you mentioned in your talk about bare metal, and it looks to me like if I look at all the discussion of OpenStack, is that we kind of have this picture of network storage and others, but when I want to implement an OpenStack data center, which storage do I pick? Which hardware do I pick? Is there best practices for that? Because the options could be huge.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the other things that actually I think that ties back to your first question a little bit, is that you're going to have to you're gonna have to expect that you're gonna have to do a decent amount of learning and education. Like it's both about expectations and about cultural things, but also it's very much we've built OpenStack on exactly those things that there are a bazillion different choice combinations you can put together that allow, with the idea that you can deploy it and do it in a potentially different way. That you could deploy an OpenStack cloud with Ceph behind it. You could deploy an OpenStack cloud with Swift behind it, and these to the end user might have very similar experiences. In fact, hopefully they do. Like if they don't, then we've done something wrong. And then it sort of becomes about you making the choice about what it is you're trying to accomplish with your cloud. And this is, I think, where we've had some problems in defining reference architectures in terms of what's the best storage or what's the best server to pick, because that sort of depends. And we're starting to try and define reference architectures for OpenStack in terms of what the resulting cloud does, right? Like not did you run it on the DL380s that you should all be running it on, but instead like what's the customer experience? Like what is the end user consumption experience of the cloud, and then how do we verify that when you've made your decisions about you're gonna run on your on your 3-par SAN that it's gonna have the right experience, right? That the expectations are gonna go across appropriately.
Will it only make sense to run OpenStack on commodity hardware? Or?
No, I think that it's actually, and this is the thing that I was sort of trying to get at earlier in the thing when I was speaking at 1,000 miles a second, is that this is about abstracting those things away. So as the service provider, these are questions. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? What's the end user audience? Like, are you trying to get for ultra dense? Like, is that important? Like, you need to get a bazillion blades into your thing because of the capacity you need. Do you need to drive costs down? In which case, commodity might be a better choice. Are you trying to go for like an ARM enclosure, which is going to be a whole new set of things? But when you put the cloud APIs on top of this, then you shouldn't. You should be able to make all of these choices in order to achieve the goals that you're trying to get out of your cloud. But have those things not impact your ability to use the cloud. I think that Shmuel's reference of Linux and the user space APIs in the Linux world is a really good example there too. You can run Linux on top of a SAN, and you can run Linux on top of just a single hard drive, and hopefully your application shouldn't know the difference.
And all those options would work.
And all those applications work, yeah. If they don't, then there's a bug somewhere.
Okay. And Kobe, before I switch to Shmuel, you kind of taken the approach of taking OpenStack yourself and kind of taking it from the distro, not from the distro, but actually taking it from the source code and building it up yourself. How was your experience doing that? And would you recommend other people to go that route?
Yeah, like I said before, we started a year ago. We took Ubuntu's code, and it was a very hard beginning. It's not like it today. Only yesterday, someone from our IT department said, "Okay, I want to try OpenStack." He took a server and he deployed Red Hat RDO in a few hours, and he had OpenStack up and running. We helped him a bit, but after a few hours, he had it up and running. And when we started a year ago, it was a different level of effort. It took us a few months to deploy. We started, like I said, with Diablo, and then moved to Assets, and it took us a few weeks to make it a production level. So I would recommend, and there are plenty of very good packages today that you can use it even ago.
So Alex, what was you wanted to say something about at least the perception of taking the OpenStack as is from source code and building it yourself?
Well, I mean, we saw a couple of use cases which are similar to your use case, where very good engineers were able to actually, we helped some of them, and then they kind of took over and managing it themselves. Some well-known names. Some of the challenges that they found themselves in later is that they would say finish something on Essex, because that's when they did most of the development, and they put a lot of orchestration around it, and so now 2 years later, year and a half later, they're running on a kind of forked version of OpenStack. And one of the challenges that they have is this train is moving really, really fast. And while they're technically capable of upgrading, the amount of technical effort that's required, for those customers who are doing it not to build infrastructure for a living, but rather, to deploy applications on it, they find themselves having to engineer infrastructure for a living, which may or may not be the best use of their resources. So the last comment here was on the packages. Yes, there are packages that will kind of give you the standardization and the upgrade path, and I would try to kind of work them into the fabric, because these vendors, us included, but we will put a tremendous effort, including putting things inside of OpenStack itself to kind of provide the upgrade path. Because the whole idea of having OpenStack is that as the train is moving, the people can take advantage of the innovations that are happening in the community.
And Gregory, I think you've done in Intel the same thing, right? You've taken out the open source OpenStack and built and used that as a basis, right?
Right. And one of the kind of best known methods that we see is really this is heavily depending on the community, on the open source community. And when we find the gaps in the OpenStack that we find as critical for us, we invest in closing those gaps and contributing back to the open source. So this gives us both more experience with the code and also more credibility with the open source community. So if we find some issue that we do not want to address, we cannot address internally, others are more ready to help us.
But would you still choose to take the open source OpenStack and build it yourself, or
yes.
doing a distro, or still?
Yes.
Got it. So, Shmuel, I think that if I look at the project that you've done, you kind of built OpenStack at large scale. I think that's kind of, as opposed to, let's say, regular IT shop where they do it for the internal users, you're kind of targeting public users. If I want to build my own cloud, not for public users, what would be the right choice or the first choice that I'm going to pick?
Well, I was showing the previous slide before. Is that when you like the first things, like you need to see what's the expectations of as a service provider or someone who's implementing the service provider, is that what you want to do with it. Is that you want to have you want to have a set of features, and you're going to use that, and you're going to try to scale that. So try to don't do too much straight away if you want to build a large public cloud. And that's mostly what would be my advice to someone who's starting to build it. And now from a technology point of view, is that there is a lot of solutions, and it's all, like Monty was saying before, it's all pluggable and between APIs and stuff and blah blah blah. So try to see what's your best fit for you, because and see what's better for your pricing or for you for everything else. And after you'll be able to deploy your cloud. So you'll be able to try a lot of technology before you choose it, as long as you know how to stay focused on what you want to do.
Good, so I'll stop here just for a second to see if there are any questions from the audience. Yes?
Yeah, I'm interested to understand the maturity of OpenStack for cloud services, public cloud services. What are the use cases with peer-to-peer in interactive environment, your customers, in your IT, in a live person, are OpenStack deployments that are basically the operator and tenant consumers of cloud services are the same person, same people. So still, what is the maturity for actually cloud services on the public? I know HP is working on that, the red space are doing that.
So Mac, so I'd actually, and there's actually a few on DreamHost and Aptera are also doing those public. I think that one of the best things that I can say as far as that goes is HP started down their public cloud path right around the Diablo release. Rackspace, as we all know, is running off of Trunk, as we've sort of has been discovered or discussed. The OpenStack dev and CI infrastructure, which at some point I'll be more than happy to bend anybody's ear over beers about what that does. But amongst the things that happen there is we run a scalable build farm across both HP and Rackspace clouds continually. I mean, we hammer the ever-loving crap out of those clouds, and we run it continuously. And we don't have any if HP, else Rackspace, whatever in our code. We just consume OpenStack APIs across both of those clouds, and we spin up and tear down over 1,000 machines a day. And if any of those fail, then our developers all scream because we gate commits on it. So I'd say that looking at the fact that those two providers, just the two of them, are able to that we're able to run an interoperable application across two public clouds. We're hopefully going to have Enobots actually added into that build farm soon, and hoping we get some of the other ones in. In terms of maturity, I mean that's a pretty amazing thing, quite honestly.
The question is how much is the pure OpenStack running Rackspace and HP Cloud, and how much is their own secret source?
So I can't answer for HP because I'm sure that I'd be violating some sort of confidentiality agreement that I don't even know that I have. I do know that Rackspace is running mostly because I have confidentiality from them. I'm just parroting stuff they've said from months. I know they're running mostly from Tron. Their Keystone implementation is not Keystone; it's something else, and their management dashboard is something else. I believe, as I understand it, they are currently in works to replace their rewrite of Keystone with actual Keystone. But other than that, they're running. I mean, they've been running Swift since before it was an OpenStack. But they run Nova. That's just Nova, and it's all stock OpenStack.
So we have probably, I don't know, maybe a little less than 10 or maybe a little more than 10 customers who are public providers. Some of them know names like AT&T, for example, right? I think that the main challenge there, we just signed another one, I think, a couple of months ago, and they're actually live and they have customers on that. So it actually takes not very long to stand up OpenStack. So I think I agree with Monty that OpenStack itself is actually quite ready to be able to scale across multiple servers and provide pretty reliable service. The main challenge is being able to actually spin up services, monitoring and management tools. And these are not really part of OpenStack, and there isn't a very well-defined ecosystem around them. So everybody has their own solution. So to be able to really operate it and then provide services on top, because most of, some providers differentiate, don't differentiate. They just differentiate with their channels. But some that are smaller, they differentiate by the whole number of services. For example, we have a couple of customers who actually are vertical cloud that serve drug discovery and gene therapy and those kind of things. And so OpenStack is a wonderful platform, but there are challenges that you have, like HIPAA compliance that you have to go through, and let's say half of it is the organization, half of it is making sure that actually the procedures can be followed inside the OpenStack ecosystem. And then once you do that, they will have monitoring and management and different tools and then services. So before it becomes big enough so they can actually offer meaningful service, that can take some time. So I think we need to see some innovation at the tools level, and then I think it will be a much easier gate to offer as a package.
Other questions from the audience? Yes?
So maybe following up on that point, what do each of you see as the biggest gap in how we sit?
Who wants to take that?
I'll take it first out of that. Right now we have 800 active technical contributors, and they produce a giant amount of source code every day that we have to test and stuff like that. But we have a lot of them, and it's going on, and that's going well. Even with that, I don't think we have enough. Then we need more. So the short answer is people, right? We need more contributors to handle it. It's a really big problem space. But also, even more than that is people who understand how to deploy it, and like, you go to places where people are trying to hire for OpenStack people, and good luck. I mean, there's not enough people who know how it works. Even the companies who are like, those of us who are in companies who are providing services around this, we're trying really hard to hire enough people who have the background. Like it's a really, because it's such a new thing, there haven't been enough time for people to develop professional skills to support these things. And so I think that the biggest gap, all the rest of the stuff is engineering. Like, we can get some tools and whatever, you put together some shell scripts. But what you can't put together with shell scripts is a person to tell them money. And I think that we need to continue growing our ecosystem of people who can do that, in our ecosystem of companies who are providing services. You know, you look at the combination of stuff that we've got going on just on the stage, and we've got three of us that provide professional services around, because you guys are just local, right? Like, so that's at least like that's, you know, because that's still necessary. We've got to continue to grow that. So people, Soylent Green, need more Soylent Green.
In my world, I would answer that with features. Okay, like we mentioned before, HA for a single VM. Okay, we miss it a lot today. We used to be in the old days VMware users, and we do miss it. We hope it will be maybe around next year. And there are some more features that we miss. Maybe around migration, it's not something that works fluently today, but I'm sure we're going there. It really depends on the user base. Okay, we talked earlier about the organization, about the culture. It's all true, and the user case in terms of expectations is very, very important. You need to ask yourself really carefully what you need it for. And what you do today, and I'm sure it's an easy way from there to know how you can use it and where.
So I've got one question to you on that regard. You mentioned that you delivered the ability to build OpenStack to the IT, which means that you see yourself outside of the IT within that person.
I didn't say exactly that we delivered IT. I said that IT.
That someone from the IT.
We have OpenStack. We have OpenStack also in the IT for the QA.
So you don't see, I mean, the OpenStack group in Thai person is not the IT group, it's not part of it.
The IT group are not exactly part of the production. But to answer that, we did help them, we did build the clusters, several clusters for OpenStack in the IT, and they got their tenants and permissions, and they're doing everything themselves. We do have an easy way to add more capacity, add more hosts with Puppet scripts, and this way it's very easy for them to expand without knowing anything. It's exactly the same in production. We gave our operations. We built the OpenStack in the engineering group, but we have operations that are not skilled with the internals of OpenStack, but they don't need to be, because they have the Puppet scripts to add more capacity, and they don't need to know exactly what's going on behind it. But it's very easy for them to throw more machines and P2V applications and continue to grow.
So one last question to all the panelists, unless there is more questions here. Yes.
So, actually, a very interesting question. I agree with what you just said. So, when you look at gaps, there are two distinct markets, and the gaps are very different. So, the most people who are, in our experience, who are actually using OpenStack are using it for new greenfield elastic applications, which means that the applications are actually aware that they're running on an elastic infrastructure. For those, OpenStack doesn't need a lot of features that otherwise would be required in the kind of enterprise world. So feature-wise, then, you're actually missing kind of elastic services on top of OpenStack that can actually allow you to build, right elastic applications. And those are being developed, and you can see, Elastic SQL, Elastic, Hadoop, we have a Savannah project launched just to kind of support that for analytics. And as we can see more people providing native platform level services, plus management and orchestration, you will see that that gap will fill, and this is kind of the Amazon roadmap. Then there is a whole other world, who is exactly the use case we're describing here, is once you build your OpenStack infrastructure, the IT guys who are running VMware virtualization and all that are starting to ask questions. Actually, their financial people are starting to ask questions is, why do we need to pay another $2 million of VMware licenses for our development environments? Maybe we can piggyback with what those guys build in OpenStack. And then suddenly the applications you're trying to use are the monolithic enterprise applications that are not infrastructure aware. And there you have to have live migration, and you have to have a whole set of tools that VMware provides that OpenStack doesn't need. So if we want, as an OpenStack community, to make sure we can cater to the old traditional loads, we will need to have portability to companies like Veeam, for example, that can do backups and all that, and do live migrations. And those gaps will help us to get some of the traditional loads in. So that's the way to look at it.
So a series of questions on that regard, kind of one last piece of advice from users that want to play with OpenStack or want to build a development shop within my organization. What would be your advice? Where should I start? So I'll start with Monty.
I'd start with the upstream community. I think you've got to, based on the other things where there's a learning curve, you're going to sort of learn about what's going on in the pipeline and things like that. You're at least right now, you're not gonna be successful in a vacuum with this. You're gonna have to get involved, whether it's just for advice, but eventually you're gonna want to. It's gonna wind up being more efficient a lot of times to be able to have a direct line into the upstream community. So I would start there. I would start like going as close to the source as you can, especially if you're not doing if you're not rolling into production tomorrow. Go grab trunk. Like don't grab something that's old, because by the time you've figured out what's going on, you're going to be out of date, and then you're going to have to get in a bad place. Find the person in your org who wants to get their hands dirty, and have them go upstream and start doing that, so that you can practice talking upstream, and so you can sort of get a sense of how this thing is moving. And then at that point, if you wind up going with a provider or something like that, you'll have the context to be able to make those decisions and understand the ramifications of we're going to deploy Grizzly and keep it there for 3 years. Like you'll know what that means in your gut somewhere. I think that's the.
Is it mandatory to buy also new hardware, or can I plug it into my existing ones?
It runs on my laptop.
Okay.
I just want to continue. Definitely, start to look over upstream. That for me, just to come back to the question, for me, the most challenging thing in OpenStack is the upgrades. So it's kind of a pain, to be honest, and it's a developer culture as well. For us as a developer, we need to learn that we need to always update our work, and learning at first upstream and be able to know how upstream works, and be able to learn how to follow upstream as well. So you get that version coming and you know what to expect after, and be able to follow at least. I'm not saying doing all the reviews, all the patches and stuff and blah blah, but at least you can know what's going on. So you don't have to wait until 6 months time before you're doing the update. So starting to learn how it's going to evolve or it's going to go, and be able to start test trying to use DevStack if you wanted, or use whatever tools that has been developed, and be able to learn with that.
Okay.
Okay, like I said in the presentation, the best hint I can give is start. Start small. Take commodity servers. Start. I was approached during the coffee break, and people asked me, okay, my organization today have a very big implementation of VMware. How can I convince them to move to OpenStack? I'm very interested, but it's going to be very hard for me. So I said, don't get into the political and logistic problems of the organization. Take a few commodity servers, don't buy something, don't go into purchasing. Take a few of your free servers and start build your take the latest trunk and start playing with it. You will feel more comfortable. You will be able to build your ROI very, very quickly, because there is no licensing involved. When the time comes and they will need to buy another server, more licenses, you will say, well, wait a minute, I have your implementation of OpenStack. I already have some VMs in it. Let's see if it can help us instead of buying the licenses.
So if I'll summarize the 3 points, go with Trank and get yourself educated first. Build for upgrades or design for upgrades. And your point is basically start small or build it and they will come. Alex?
Agree with all of that. Do not try to lock yourself into a specific provider. Start with a use case where it's not production bound. So what we've seen is testing environments and R&D environments is the best place to start. As somebody said, a shameless plug, but I think it's actually very useful because we did build it just for that community. We have all the do-it-yourself kits, which are available at Naranta's website, Fuel. It's completely free. It has all the libraries that kind of do the installations. They use the trunk. There's no login. There's no money involved, but there's very good documentation that you can read to just kind of get you started. So kind of go with that route. There's Alamo, there's Juju. I mean, those are useful tools that you should probably consider as well. And the rest of it, build it from bottom up. OpenStack is all about kind of building things from bottom up, a community, never from top down.
So to summarize, one point there is start with dev. Then there are tools, look at the tools that helps you to take things from Trank, not the distros if I come out and take that, and just make your build from Trank easy. Great.
Right, so I agree with that. I think if you want to start with it, just start. But you definitely should learn from what others are doing. There are plenty of material online, both in the forums and our specific experience with the OpenStack introduction. You can find this on intel.com/IT. There are quite a few best methods of adopting the OpenStack available as well. But I think in general, you have to start with non-production, get some experience with it, and then make a decision if you really want to continue with this, if it's going to address your needs.
So thank you all. We'll be done with the panel, so thank Monty, thank you, Shmuel. We'll now move to the raffle, and I'm ready for the beer. I don't know about you, so we'll do that pretty quick. Raffle.